Hi everyone, Pastor Janet here. Good to see you even this way. I hope you're doing okay. I'm sure you've had exciting times, an end of school year and all those things happening. Some of you may have graduated, so congratulations for that. I want to tell you today about a parrot, but it's not my parrot. I've talked about my parrot before. This is the parrot that belongs to one of my neighbours. He's an African grey parrot. That just means he's a completely grey parrot. But what they lack in maybe in pretty colours, they absolutely gain in an ability to speak, and they often know hundreds of words. They're really quite special. So my friend, who's an artist, one day she was painting, and the parrot's on a different floor of the house. And she was painting and painting and painting, and the parrot was getting louder and louder and louder. He was calling her, and he was whistling, and he was shouting. And after a while, she went down out the room, and she just said, "Hey, what's the matter now? Quieten down. I'll come and see you soon." And she went back to painting, and after a few minutes, the parrot got super loud again and started to shout. And she went back out, and she said, "Come on, come on. Not so much noise now. Don't shout." So she went back to her painting, and sure enough, the shouting started again. So she went over to the parrot. She went down. I think he was in the basement, and she went down to him, and she went straight to the cage, and she said, "Now, what is the matter with you?" And the parrot looked straight back at her and said, "You are." Now, that parrot had said lots of things, and a lot of them made no sense. But on that occasion, the parrot said something that it fitted. It was funny. So she started laughing, and the parrot gained his freedom, and out he came to spend some time with her. We all like funny stories. A friend of mine, and this daughter I'm going to tell you about, is now probably older than your mums and dads are. A friend of mine, her daughter, when she was young, called those blue lights on the top of a police car, she called them bimbly dops. She was only about 3 or 4 when she decided they should be called bimbly dops. But from that point on, in her house, there were bimbly dops. And in fact, even now, my husband and I, if I'm out and about, I'll say, "Oh, look, he turned on his bimbly dop." It's a funny story. It's a silly thing. I'm sure your family too, they remember things. Maybe you get embarrassed because they say, "You remember what he used to call that, or what she used to say about?" But they do it because it was funny, or it just fitted, or you just said something very, very clever and surprised them. So you see, we remember things because they're funny, or they're surprising, or they're different. And really, that's what our stories are about. Our stories about Jesus are because Jesus said something that was surprising or different, something people weren't expecting. And so they remembered it. In a time when they weren't able to write things down, they remembered those stories. And what I'm going to be talking about with the adults in the next video is really about a time when Jesus said to the people who were listening, and they were his disciples, and they were going to be going off, and he said, "Just remember, when you do something that's good and kind, you're doing it not simply because I asked you to. You're doing it because God asked me to ask you." In other words, when we do something kind, we're not doing it just because. We're not doing it only because Jesus told us we should, but we're actually doing it because God needs us to. You see, if we're to make the world a better place, God expects us to be God's hands and eyes and ears and mouth. God expects us, even if we're young, to be kind and say a kind word, because That's how most people are going to hear God speak to me, is through us. And if somebody needs to do something kind, mom needs a help doing something, she's super busy, or your brother or sister needs help, God is going to wait for you to do that, because we're all part of making the world a better place, because Jesus told us we should. Jesus was told that by God. So we all have work to do, and it's very special work, because it's not what we want to do, it's what God needs us to do. And that's pretty exciting. So let's have a quick word of prayer. Loving God, we thank you that you have trusted the important things of the world to people just like us, that we can be kind and we can be loving and we can be helpful and we can do your work in the world to make it a better place, the kind of place you want it to be. Thank you for trusting us. Help us to serve you well. In Jesus' name we ask it. Amen. Bye. See you again.